Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Peugeot. The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Media Clip, Artifcts Printing, and Independent Photo Imagers.
Hello again and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Peugeot, and today we're joined by Ellen Goodwin, the co-founder of Artifcts. The company's in Washington, D.C., but Ellen's coming to us from Austin, Texas today. Hi, Ellen. How are you today?
Hey, good morning, Gary. Happy to be here.
Everyone's going to say, what is Artifcts? So let's just get that out of the way first, because it's a relatively new company serving a very long-needed service.
Yeah, you got that right, Gary. So what is Artifacts? We are where stories and stuff meet. We all collect and accumulate and inherit, or will one day inherit, a lot of stuff.
Right.
How do we know what it is, why it matters, and what we're going to do with it next? So we wanted to make it as simple as social media, but private by default, for you to capture the stories and the memories and the history behind it all and the value.
Tell me a little bit about why the company was founded. You and your co-founder saw this as a need. Was there a personal story that jump-started this, or was this there's a lot of boomers dying and they got a lot of stuff and this is a big market opportunity? What was the reason behind the starting of the company?
Well, you weren't wrong. There's something like $3 trillion worth of durable assets that the boomers are about to pass down, and that's a terrifying sum of stuff. But yes, it was personal in motivation. My co-founder's mother passed away unexpectedly. She was only 65 years old. Mm-hmm. She had an estate plan. She had a will. And yet where it said, what are we going to do with your tangible assets? It was blank. And all it said was divide equally among 3 children. And my co-founder, being the eldest and only girl, her brothers looked at her and said, not it, but don't get rid of anything important. And how do you know what that is? And moreover, ultimately, we don't really want the stuff. We want the stories and the memories, but we still have to deal with the stuff in the room. It took her over a year to go through a house, 5,000 square feet of stuff, and make those decisions. That's putting your life on pause. That's putting your grief on pause, because you're tumbling through all of this stuff and
you're reliving it as you go.
Yeah. It's a very, very painful process. And
the brothers, of course, said, being probably dudes, going, I don't want to touch those emotions.
Oh, yeah. They're like, good luck with that, right? But that's exactly it. And look, we have a stuff problem, and we're a very consumeristic society. We accumulate a lot of it at every life milestone. This is not just about growing old and collecting a lot of things. Right. We accumulate throughout our lives. We can transform our relationships to stuff and to each other if we just pause and ask ourselves, what is it? Why does it matter? And what am I going to do with it? And that's what, we wanted to bring to people. And my co-founder said, look, I don't need an inventory. I don't need to know every spoon, sheet, lamp in the house.
Right.
And I don't need a journal with stories. I need to literally bring the two together so I can make better decisions about all of it. And that's what she ended up doing. She came to me and she said, look, I had this problem and we're going to solve it together. And I said, great. What does that look like? And she said, that's what you figure out. So I'm on the product side, dreaming up how we make this really, really easy. And we've done that, right? One of our top artifactors, she's 76 years old. She has over 600 artifacts she's made using our Android app. And she's delighted that she did it without any help. She makes a point about that. So it really was one of those things where we had to make it easy and fun so it can become a part of a habit, right? My husband gave me a new necklace for our anniversary. First thing I did was artifact it along with the documentation. So if I ever need to sell it or insure it, I have it. But I also have the great story from our anniversary to go with the necklace when one day I give it to my daughter.
When you're talking about, these things, you're not always talking about the monetary value, right? So we're not talking about some of these home inventory things that you see. I mean, there's all kinds of apps for that. This isn't that, right? So let's walk through what Artifact actually does, like the process, because just because this is an audio podcast, I strongly encourage people to go to your website, which we'll talk about later, to learn more. But talk a little bit about the process of what people get when they sign up for Artifact.
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll go to our app or you'll go to our website, you'll create a free account. You can create 5 artifacts free to give it a try. But what it's going to have you do is, let's say you're on a mobile app. My friends always say, oh, it works like a normal app. Yes, it works like a normal app. But you'll go to, you talk about the sentimental in nature. My daughter made me a card. I was sick, right? So she made me this beautiful card and she gave it to me. So I took a photo of it. I selected that photo, I shared it, and I didn't choose Instagram or Facebook. I chose the Artifacts app. And I popped that photo of the card in it, and I hit record on my phone in the app, and I recorded my daughter telling me, Mom, wishing you well, blah, blah, blah. I have her video there with the card, and I save it, I caption the card, I add a few details, I hit save, and it goes into my Artifacts collection. And now it's one of many artifacts I have from a moment in my life that was really amazing. And that gives me 2 things, right? It captures that moment in time, but also we literally cannot keep everything that comes into our homes. That would be cake, right? So at some point you're going to declutter and you're going to downsize, whether you're moving or not. But like, you can't keep it all. But this is a way to keep the memories, even if you don't keep the stuff. And it's all instantly organized and shareable and downloadable. So it just puts the utility back in your hands. I don't have to, we tell people, you take a lot of photos. You're from the photo industry. But you take a photo. We take 5.3 billion photos every day worldwide. That's the number I read. The average person takes 20 a day. 20 a day. And then that photo that I took of the card would be 20 back, 100 back, 1,000 back. I forgot I even took the photo. Right. I share it or do anything to preserve what it mattered to me. And photos can't talk. I mean, we can animate them and do interesting things, sure. Right. But no one's going to be able to say, what did your daughter say when she gave you this card? No one's going to know that. They cannot read my memories yet. But no one can AI their way into my memories. That's on me. But we can make it really easy to capture it. So when you create artifact after artifact, you build this collection and you can view it in a timeline fashion. So you can see moments of your life. I can see when I went to graduate school. I can see when I was traveling throughout Africa, right? All of these moments come to life in this timeline. And it makes it easy to share too with like the valuable stuff. I'll make sure it's covered under my insurance policy. I'll send it to my agent. I'll add things into that tangible assets memorandum in my will. So people not only inherit stuff, but the stories to go with it, and maybe they'll actually want the stuff when they know the story.
Right, because now they know what it means to you, right?
Exactly.
When they get the necklace, they know this isn't just the necklace from, you picked up on one of your trips, but it was a present from your husband, and that was great, and there's this whole lovely story behind it, and that makes it more meaningful.
And how great that your legacy is all these stories and memories and not just a burden that you're passing down to your loved ones. Here is all my stuff. Go figure it out. Like, that's not fun. This is a much better opportunity for you.
Yeah, you've hit on a great point, because when you mentioned downsizing earlier, that hit home to me, because my wife and I downsized our home. We went from a 3,300 square foot home with 4 bedrooms to, basically an apartment we're living in right now. We sold, we downsized the house and everything, and we had bins of stuff that we had saved for the kids, like all their kindergarten artwork, all their stuff, the trophies, the medals, the participation ribbons, the first place ribbons, you name it, we saved it. And then we had the kids over before we moved in, and we were like, here, take your bin, and they're like, what? I don't want this bin. Of course, we couldn't get rid of it, so the bins are in our storage unit. And now I'm thinking, now I need an artifact thing to artifact these things so I can get rid of the bins.
100%, Gary. And that is a story we hear probably every week here at Artifacts. And I've actually been working on drawing a cartoon. I've discovered I'm not a cartoonist. I need to hire one. But for exactly that reason, it's like, look, I saved this all for you. And it's literally a closet and these boxes piled up with high school and K through 12 and stuffed animals and all these things. And you're like, no, I don't want it. But it's great if you remember, our kids, they don't remember being 3, but we can remember for them. We can capture those stories before we donate those items, right? And we had one father, he actually ended up writing an article for us. He was going through that. Just like you said, he was downsizing. He told his kids, you have until this date to come and get your stuff.
That's what we did, exactly.
Yep. And so that date came, and he artifacted what he knew about the things that he was getting rid of because they didn't come get him. And then over Thanksgiving, he showed his kids his artifacts timeline. He's telling them all these stories. And he asked his 4 kids, he said, well, what did you learn from this? And his eldest said, I learned you didn't have a kid named Spencer. And he's like, what? And it's because the eldest was the only one that came and got his stuff, so none of it was artifacted. The others got all these great stories, but not the eldest. So he was a little jealous, and Dad had to go back and create some artifacts for his eldest.
That hits home because one of my children is named Spencer. So that's a coincidence, isn't it?
That's wild. It was not, just for the record, everyone, it wasn't Gary. That story was not about Gary.
But it sounds very appealing at this point.
That's right.
Anyway, so you've got different market segments you can appeal to with this, because it's not just the people who are passing on a legacy, but even just like you said, the lower kids. So is this something you discovered, or was this part of the pitch when you were looking for, the 30-second elevator pitch? Was this part of it, or did this open up and you discover it?
We always envisioned, look, our slogan at the start was "Got stuff, we all do." So we always knew stuff is something that crosses every boundary, demographic-wise. But you can't build a company going after everybody.
Right.
That said, this has been an interesting year at Artifacts. So we received a Mom's Choice Gold Award. Why? People are using us to create digital baby books, and that's fabulous, right? We won a Genealogy Technology Award this year.
Right.
Why? Because if you're not a genealogist, genealogy software can be really intimidating.
It's awful. Sorry, I use Mac Family Tree. It's terrible. But anyway.
But getting your family to sign in and look at a family tree, or a gallery of hundreds of photos, or a gallery of hundreds of documents, and putting the burden on them to connect the dots is really, really unpleasant. And so genealogists discovered, on Artifacts, each artifact is a bite-sized story that connects the dots, and I can get my family to pay attention to that, right? So we have along the way picked up a lot of energy, and even now we just announced we're working with a group of veterans organizations because we're experimenting with using artifacting as a PTSD intervention.
Sure.
It's not, because every artifact by default is private. So you can capture those memories and stories behind photos and medals and uniforms and all of that, and you can share it with whatever community you want to when you're ready. And that's the key there, is finding a safe space. It's the same reason we're doing brain health study right now with UMass Chan Medical School, right? It's a cognitive health component to what Artifacts is doing, as well as the behavioral health, right? People struggle with, another spectrum is hoarding disorders, right? And how do you help people let go of the things? Well, you can do it by honoring the reason why they kept it in the first place. We all keep it. I interviewed a gentleman, very wealthy individual, and he was enamored with artifacts for his collections. He has a lot of very valuable collections. First thing he wanted to artifact, it was a brick. And it was the week of bricks. We had 3 other people artifacting bricks that week that shared them with us. These things that are completely sentimental. It was a trip that he and his wife took for an anniversary, and they were rebuilding this pathway, and they swiped a brick from it, and they keep it. And it's a memento of this very big trip that they took. Your kids look in your house, and they're going to be like, "Why do you have a brick? Like, what's with the brick?"
Exactly.
What's with the brick, Dad? Come on. But that's another way where we depart, because we actually connect the digital stories with the stuff in the room, because you can print a QR code off of your artifact and actually attach it to the physical item.
Right.
That way, someone comes across Dad's brick, they scan it, and up pops the story. And that has a lot of legs with it, with all of those segments that we just talked about. We have a lot of users who are using those QR codes to help get organized and declutter, to help with managing a move, to help on all these different ways. And so those QR codes that became ubiquitous during COVID era, we built that in from the start, and we now have actually QR code stickers. Because people were using them in such volume, and they're like, "Ellen, it's great that I can print it for free for my artifact, but I don't have time to print and cut and stick. Can you give me some stickers?" So we've been watching how our members are using us and trying to make sure that we're meeting them where they're at to make it easier and easier as they go.
One of the other things we've been covering a little bit is like the photo reminiscent therapy for Alzheimer's patients, right? Where people can re-engage their brain, if you will, through looking at photos. So I imagine artifacts could even be part of that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Our brain health study is using something a little different. We're using biomarkers in voice to detect cognitive health changes. But the NIH has funded multiple studies on reminiscence therapy, and there's a lot of hope there. And I tell people, it's interesting, and you and I were talking before we started recording about these broad questions that come out there that we're supposed to ask our family members to elicit family stories and history. And they can be really intimidating. Like, where do I start with such a big question? Mm-hmm. Our findings are completely different. If you just show someone an object that they have right next to them every day and say, ask them very simple question, just a truth. What is this thing?
Right.
And then they can say, oh, that's a cat. It's a cat. Where did it come from? Oh, I carved it. You carved it? Yeah. Oh, I was 16 and the boys and girls school had just merged together into one high school and we had a shop class with the boys and I carved this cat and the boys still, an object can pull the thread on memory after memory in a really powerful way. And then on Artifacts, you capture that and it's shareable for always. And obviously you can attach the story to it. So we see that all the time. And even in my personal life, my mother has dementia and we artifact together all the time. It's a safe space. It doesn't have ads. It doesn't have people trying to friend you, right? Isn't these like hidden chats where they're swapping information? It's a safe space and it's a happy space, right? They can sit there and go from story to story to story. She can listen to audio and video. She can, call to me. Do you remember? Yes, I remember. It's a safe space, a friendly one. And you can step out of that role of caregiver and you can just be mother-daughter again. Right. And that's really, really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Now, does your mom go back and revisit things she's already artifacted, or is that
over and over? Yeah, and that's part of it. People with dementia, there's a reason they like to look at photographs and images in general, but the ones that have the reminiscence therapy power that they're researching are not general images. It's not here's a dog, here is your dog that you had. Right. Years. That's the more powerful image, is something very personal. And so all of the artifacts are personal. She's not browsing through generic ones that the public have made. She's in her own collection and things people have shared with her. So these all evoke memories for her and very positive emotions.
So this is like a private network storage sharing thing. How is your plan to keep this in perpetuity? I guess that's a word I cannot pronounce, but I think you understood what I just said. That's the other piece of it, right? Is you hope this is here for generations. What is your plan for that as a company?
Well, I think that, it's interesting. When we were about to launch is when the .heic files all of a sudden were the default on our phones. Mm-hmm. And we immediately had to adapt. Now, not all technology has. Like, I upload my accounting receipts and it still won't take a .heic file, and it's been 3 years. Like, what on earth? But I think part of the answer is adaptation. We're digitally native. We're going to keep adapting. And we're even, looking at other things right now, like how do we bring in hidden watermarks to protect the content that people add into the artifacts, right? So part of it is adapting. We will never tell anyone that something's permanent or forever because there's no such thing. We don't know what forever means, right? As a human species, but we'll continue adapting as technology does. And furthermore, our technology is built with a couple of defaults in it. One, there's legacy contacts, right? A primary and a secondary. So if we don't hear from you or something happens, your artifacts can be transferred and they can live on. They can be frozen in place, right? There's choices. But, I would hope every company, I don't care how big you are or how small, has an exit plan. If we needed to exit, the first thing we do is contact all of our members and say, these are valuable, these artifacts you've created. Here are any number of ways you can take them with you. Right? That's the responsibility of every company, is to know how you protect the value of what your users have created.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to, is that, even though you're a private vault, I don't want to use the word vault, but a private environment, and it's personal and private, it is exportable.
Yep, absolutely.
Unlike a lot of other things, which we will not mention, right? It's not a proprietary database. You can still get at your stuff.
Exactly. And in human intelligible formats. This is not a proprietary format. You can take it as a PDF. You can zip it and take down your original photos, videos, audio, documents in their original formats. We don't compress them. You know how many times people complain to us, I put this in photo in Facebook and now it's pixelated. And I'm like, well, yeah, they compressed it when you uploaded it, right? And so people lose the value of their assets. And so at Artifacts, we're like, yeah, we are not doing that. You can download it in its original format, take it back. And that supports a lot of other things too, but it makes it easy to work with as well. So a lot of our members, you can print your artifacts to a book if you want with our custom designer. And it makes it easy to do things like that too. We don't want you to feel locked in.
Right. And that's where I was kind of getting to, is that, output is a piece of this. And of course, my audience loves the output piece. I can imagine there's a lot of actually opportunities where people could create collections of things. Let's say, grandma's wood shop projects, her cats and all her things. And you could just create a little thing just to have a tangible thing. So, not that your website and app aren't great, but, it'd be nice just to have a tangible thing you can touch. And this does allow for that. Do you plan on expanding that sort of opportunity?
Yeah, and that's something that, I attended the Visual First conference, which is a big photography industry conference, and you were there. And it's definitely an area where making that easier and easier. We know partners that support an API, so our members can simply export artifacts into a book builder and build their own books if they wanted to,
and put that QR code next to the.
That's right. Yeah, and that's how our books are designed, right? Yeah. So right now, if you do it with our partner right now, she does the layout for you, but you can choose, do I want the QR codes? And obviously then you're reading the story, up pops the audio and video as well. It also means you can edit and add to it without, you don't have to reprint the book necessarily immediately. Right. Ultimately, you might have volumes 1, 2, 3, 4 over time. I was thinking about that myself. I've artifacted all the ornaments on my Christmas tree, right? To tell the stories behind them, but I get new ones every year. So ultimately I'd need a volume 2 for all those ornaments or things like that. And so I do think that that's an area of overlap with folks in the photo industry. And I mentioned another, which is, the whole being able to watermark things discreetly as well as protect things. But there's a lot of crossover for us. We're never going to be that. We have no desire to help people post-process photographs or anything like that. That's not what we're here for.
And that actually kind of violates the authenticity of the artifact, is if 100%. You're laying on some filters and some crazy stuff on there.
That's exactly right. People are coming to us for authenticity, right? That's not what they're here for in the artifacts community.
So what's the business? I mean, I understand the business model is a subscription, but can you just kind of walk us through what that looks like? Is there an annual fee or a startup fee or a per gig fee, or what's the?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and a lot of thought went into that, right? Because what we observed in the industry is there's a lot of nickel and diming going on, and it can be really
I'm shocked.
It can be hard to know at the end of this, what am I actually paying? And that is not something we wanted to deal with. So at Artifacts, anyone can come to Artifacts, artifcts.com. We took out that second A. Anyone can go to artifacts.com, create a free account, and you can create up to 5 artifacts free. This does 2 things. One, you can try us for free. Try us on our mobile app. Try us on your tablet. Try us on your laptop. But it also means that anyone can have a free account and view the private artifacts someone might share with them. So that's how we make sure that you can have that privacy guarantee. Then we have 2 tiers. We have a $45 a year for 30 artifacts, and we have an unlimited for $119. And that unlimited also gives you 3 accounts to give away. So it's actually 4 accounts for $119. This is how people who maybe have dementia don't have a credit card anymore. This might be my brother who would put everything in a in a dumpster. It's how I can get him involved and add to stories with me. So that's a very, very affordable option as well. But we also work directly with insurance companies, estate planners, and those who want their clients to be using artifacts for different purposes, right? If you're an insurance company, you want to make sure people are properly covered, and you want to make sure they can file claims very quickly, right? They've already artifacted them. It's really easy to do. Same with estate planning. Like, they want to have really good conversations with you. What matters? What motivates you? What do you want to do with everything down the line? Right. Philosophically, right? If you're into philanthropy, I want to know that. So artifacting opens up really great conversations that way as well. So we do work on, in even senior communities. It's a great gift for someone who's moving in because they have to downsize to get there, right? Gifting artifacts to those communities and people on their wait lists is a lovely way to engage them before they move in and know them better and help them in that process. We also have an Artifacts for professionals. A lot of professionals are now using artifacting. They're doing artifacting as a service. So someone who's organizing in your home and helping you declutter. If I'm a move manager, I'm a desk, whatever your service is, you can now actually do artifacting for your clients, which has been, it was an innovation that we released just this year.
Yeah, I think that's where I first ran into you or the company was at the Photo Managers Conference. And
that's right.
Yeah, Kathy Nelson has kind of built that whole photo organizing business model around, for years. And she's been doing a great job with that because that's really something people needed but didn't know they needed. Right.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. And a lot of our Artie pros do come from the photo organizing industry because, look, you get your 150,000 photos organized. Now what? Yeah. Right? How do you, as an adult child, I don't want to inherit 150,000 photos and have to figure out what any of them mean, right? Like I would love to have the best of artifacted with the stories behind it. Because not every photo is worth 1,000 words. And the class.
Bite your tongue.
Well, I know. But the example I love to give is, my kid, she's 14. I have 1 million photos of this kid swimming right here at UT Austin. Yeah. But there's that one photo when she got her swim time. And like, how do you remember in the, all of those photos, one moment and pair it with a video of the swim and like, how do you actually preserve those moments and make those photos even more valuable? Yeah.
Cause I do think it could lead to, the actual dispensing of the actual physical prints once the people, I know that's part of the culling process that photo managers do. And it's just taking up space and clutter because people just can't let go of the physical prints that they had printed decades ago, which again, at the time was the only copy. So they did have a lot more value.
Absolutely. And Kathy Nelson of the Photo Managers has a great, she teaches in her coursework, she talks about it's okay to have a box of those photos and put a label on it that says, I couldn't get rid of it, but I'm okay if you do, right? And, just giving the next generation that permission slip. And, when you create an artifact, one of the optional fields that we include on the short form is called in the future. Right. And in the drop down, it says, I want to sell it. I want to bequeath it. I want to donate it. One of the options is as you wish. I stole it from the Princess Bride, right? I won't haunt you. Don't keep this in storage for the next 30 years. Do what you want with it. You have my permission. But that's the beauty of artifacts is that resonance of like changing our relationships to our stuff and really considering what it means to us.
Because really what matters is the emotional connection and the story, not the actual object itself. Yep.
Unless, of course, that vase that looks like your daughter made it is actually a $45,000 piece of artwork. Please don't put it in the donation bin. And now you're welcome.
Right. I imagine there's quite a few of those kind of stories.
Oh, there is all the time. I actually did a concierge artifacting session here in Austin, and the gentleman and I were working through all the things he wanted to artifact. And one of them was a $45,000 vase that looked like my daughter made it. And he's like, be careful with that one. And I was like, okay, you take it off the shelf. I'll take the photo. But you would never know. And that's a topic that we get on as well, Gary, is this intergenerational wealth transfer. It's a wealth in terms of the stories and the emotional and the sentimental value, but literally you can have hidden value in your home that you don't even know. Tell your loved ones. This is why it mattered to me or didn't. I just held on to the thing. But FYI, it's really valuable. If you don't want it, sell it, right? This is another way that artifacts as a gift to your loved ones is cluing them into something valuable.
Or on the other thing, people are holding on to things that they think are valuable. And they're not. Those precious moments figures that were hot for, how many years are, people thought they were collectibles and they would be worth something, right?
Oh, there's examples like that all the time where the person who had this Woodstock ticket and thought it was worth a fortune, but didn't realize that people just went into the event and left them in the field and people collected all of the tickets and they flooded the market with them and they're worthless. So, and that's one of the areas where at Artifacts we are innovating on using image recognition to give people factual information about things that they're artifacting, because you don't always even know what something is. And with AI, they can give you a clue, but you can also go into, there's a lot of great resources that can look at price histories on things, and you can get that like reality check. And so sorry, I know that you think this thing is worth a fortune, and it went for eBay on $5 yesterday. We're sorry. At least you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can wrestle with your emotional attachment.
Right. Well, that's great. You've mentioned it a couple times, but for the last time, where can people go for more information to reach out to you if they're interested in partnering or learning more, or just want to sign up for Artifacts? Where can they go? What's the direction you want to point them to?
Google will lead you astray with trying to spell our name. It's ARTIFCTS, artifacts.com. We took out the second A because we wanted you to think about artifacts, but look, what you artifact is something meaningful to you. So we took out that second A to reinforce that. Go to artifacts.com, create a free account, give it a try. You just never know, I think, with any product until you try it. So that's what I recommend. I also recommend downloading the app. I usually make my artifacts on the app because I'm working with photos and videos already on my phone. Sure. And then I go to the desktop to, add in on a bigger screen, more detail. Go try us out. Reach out to hello@artifacts.com if you're interested in partnering with us or in package deals on memberships. We've had a lot of those inquiries during the holidays, so please.
I imagine, sure.
That. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, great, Ellen. Thanks for spending time with us today. And it's great getting to learn more about Artifacts and hearing about your family, and I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Gary.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.